Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Fearless Cummings. Here with my guy Bryon, and today it is trial and error. So, I mean, as soon as you see that T and E, you already know it. It's time to work.
Right.
It's time to listen. It's time to ask some questions. All that good stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about, or one of the things we'll be talking about, is finishing what we start. And I don't know about y'all, but I know that I personally have a bit of an issue with that sometimes and following through with what I said I was going to do. So today, Bryon and I are going to kind of talk about that. We got some six crucial steps or whatever to kind of help with that as well. So, um, without further ado, hold on. Let's get our thing going, and then we will see you guys in. Hold on one second. Dude, where's my? Okay, there it is. Found it. All right, we'll see you guys in a second.
Yep.
Deuces.
What
And
up?
what's going on, ladies and gents? It's your guy, Mr. Fearless Cummings and Mr. Bryon Hill. Together, we are the trial and error team.
Yep.
All that good stuff. Hold on, let me put my stuff on.
Trial and Error podcast, y'all. Welcome back.
Yes. Well, welcome back, man. We've been trying to. We haven't been trying to. We've actually been going strong. We're just keeping everything consistent. And every Tuesday, this is what we're doing. Um, Again, man, if y'all show up, you show up. If you don't, you don't. But no matter what, we're here. So that's usually how that works. And that's kind of the mindset um that you have to have as well in just showing up for certain stuff. You may not have everything that you need when you decide to start doing something. And I think that Bryon, I don't know about you, but that's one of the things that I've actually noticed myself when we're going after certain things. We think that we have to have all the answers, all the questions answered. We need to know all what all exactly what the gaps are in reference to what we're missing, what we need, what things are going to look like, what things are going to be like. And a lot of
Right.
us have expectations in our minds that we say, well, if it's not going to go this way, I don't want it.
Well,
And go ahead.
it ends up becoming kind of a trap because you never like before you embark on something, you don't necessarily know everything that you're gonna need, right? And you're waiting to have all the things in place to take an action, but then you getting trapped in that learning silo. I got to learn more and blah blah blah, and the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know, and the more that you need, and it ends up becoming comfortable sitting at the starting line is what happens. You end up becoming comfortable just sitting there on the starting line, um and never really launching. So yeah, that's exactly what it is, bro.
Yeah, and
And
I think too. I think that one of the things, at least for me, that I've seen is I think that the reason why we have this, the reason why we see a lot of this, is because of one word, because of comparison. A lot of
mhm,
us compare ourselves or our situation to somebody else's plight,
right.
to somebody else's experience. So you say, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to go through this, but such and such didn't have to go through that. Yeah, they may not, but
Right.
their thing, whatever they may have to go through, you may not have to go through that same thing too. So comparing yourself to somebody else, especially when you're starting off, is horrible. Horrible.
Well, and it turns into this, what we talk about. I think we talked about it a while ago. You're comparing your highlights to so you're comparing somebody else's highlights to your outtakes, right? Like you're
Mhm.
comparing these people online who have been doing the thing or whatever it is. They've been doing it for a long ass time,
Long, long
and
time.
you're comparing yourself and your outcomes to um you're comparing your outcomes to what they've been able to accomplish, and that's just not how it works.
No,
Um,
not at all.
and it ends up becoming this ongoing thing. You know, it ends up becoming a trap for you because you never start, you never launch, you just sit there permanently at the gate because you want to be just as good as this person that's been doing the damn thing for X many years, and be just as proficient with it, you know, and that's just not how it works. It's kind of it's a human thing. You want to show up good, you don't want to look crazy, you know, but in the same by the same token, um, you have to look crazy in order to start showing up good.
Mm,
You got to go through that phase where you're not 100% popping in the way that you want to pop in because you haven't earned it yet.
no, not at all.
So,
You know, it's funny, man. So one of the books. Let me ask you before we get started, and I'm also going to ask everybody else. So I want to ask you guys, what books are you reading, and why are you reading it? I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start there. So I'm gonna ask you: are you reading anything right now, or what have you read anything this
okay.
past?
Am I? I got a couple cooking here. Let me pull up my because I've been mostly audibling. Um, I've been
Okay.
reading social engineering, um,
Okay.
the science of human hacking, hacking, that science of human hacking.
Yep.
Um, and that is by Christopher Hagney, and basically it's the concept of how basically it's a cybersecurity book, but it explains the concept of social engineering and how people gain access to computer
Yeah.
systems via
I
human beings.
remember that. Yeah.
And so I'm reading that. I'm in the middle of that one.
I think I
And
have that. I think I got that one because of you.
right. And I'm also rereading The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge.
I have that too. I have not read it though.
That one's about systems theory. A really good book. And I think the one I put down for a little bit, but I got to get back into is Traction by Gino Wickman.
Okay.
Um, and that's a lot of like more business ownership and basically getting your business ready to scale and sell kind of stuff. Um, but there's some good stuff in there. On the nonfiction side, I think I have an Easy Rollins book that I'm kind of picking through as well. You know, the latest Easy Rollins book. Um, is it Farewell Apps and what Amethyst? Yes, something along those lines. Anyway, so I have an Easy Rollins book as my fiction book, but I got a couple that I'm jumping between.
Okay. Look at man. I love first and foremost, man. And like I tell you all the time, man. I love it when people are reading and stuff. So let me see. I know that I. Oh, Kamala's book is coming today. Okay.
Yep.
So I bought the Invisible
Invisible
Gorilla.
Gorilla. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I bought two copies. So yeah. You know what? Matter of fact, we'll put a thing up there where maybe we can raffle one of those off or something.
Okay.
Um, Not only that, but I went to the store and I bought. Look what I got. Hold on. I don't know if y'all can see this. Can y'all see that?
Richest Man in Babylon. I can see it.
Boom. Bought two copies of that, and I bought an extra copy of.
Think and Grow Rich.
Come on, man. Or whatever. Um, so yeah, so we got copies of those at this present moment in time. So if you guys are interested, we'll put some stuff up or whatever so you guys can um win those books or whatever. I also want to start doing a giveaway, sir.
Okay.
I think that we really need to start giving some stuff out, especially because what we're doing is we're trying to inform people, and make people better in general. Um, especially if you look at the decline of people liking, not even liking to read, people reading in general. And
I'm with it.
there's so many people that will just grab the book. And here's the thing: I want to, because the Lord knows I'm gonna go off on a tangent. I'm gonna try to hold back the time. Well, one of the things that I've learned, sir, is that just because your book is a bestseller does not mean, and I want to make sure people hear what I'm saying. Just because your book is a bestseller does not mean it is the most read.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that again. Just because your book is a bestseller doesn't mean it's the most read. And the reason why I say that is because this book right here, The Richest Man in Babylon, by George S. Clausen, it's been out for quite a while. Okay. The principles that he talks about in this book are BC type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the central theme of it is more of a BC type of theme in general, right? But before Common Era, before Christ, BCE, BC, whatever.
Yep.
The thing that I like about it is that it's very simple for that time and it's very simple for this one. It's very simplistic. And if y'all know anything about me as a life coach, as a philosopher, I like to focus on what's simple. I like simple. Simple's doable.
Yeah.
Simple is doable. And if when it's simple, it's doable, a person will repeat it, they'll keep doing it. The more convoluted and complicated something is, a person's not going to probably do it for the most part. Me, I have a twisted mind with that. So I'm going to follow the harder part.
Right.
I would ever do that. That's just me. That's just my makeup. But one of the things that he talks about in this book is to pay yourself first. Right? Actually, I think the first one was to live below your means. That's number one. Second rule was to pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Right? Pay yourself first. Whether it's 1%, 5%, 10%, depending on how much money I make, I'll put away 50% of something. Right? And I'll spend the other stuff, but I'll put this other money aside. But this right here is where I got that from. This right here is where I got it from. And again, it's so crazy that it's a very simple concept that most people don't do. Right?
Yeah.
Some people don't do it. It's like I don't make enough. You don't make enough to save 1%. You don't make enough to save 5%. If you don't make enough to save 20 or 30, I totally get that. But you don't make enough to save 1 to 5% of what you make. If you don't have, if you're not doing that, then you gotta go do something else.
Yeah.
You have to do something else. And I'm not telling you go start your own business, because some of y'all need to stay at your job. What I'm saying is go sell something. I got a friend, Naomi. Naomi
Mm-hmm.
going to her house, and she's just putting shit out on a marketplace and selling it off. She's like, "Do I need this?" Nope. Marketplace, and people are coming and buying it. People are coming and buying it. Gary Vaynerchuk talked about the same exact thing going on that. What is it? Well, what site was he talking about?
Oh, I forgot what it was, but I know which one he's talking about. I mean,
People getting on there selling their shit off. So there's always ways to make money because somebody wants what you have.
well, and one thing is
At all times.
and one thing is, um, it's kind of a thing I want to throw out there too. A lot of times, the simple thing isn't the easy thing, and
Correct.
and sometimes it's there is a level of biting a bullet and saying, okay, I'm gonna commit to this thing that's simple, even though I know it's not easy. And
Right.
some people struggle with that, bro. Like, I got to be honest with you. There's a lot of people out there that aren't necessarily built to do what's simple because they're constantly looking for um, the easy way to do it.
Mm,
And you know, just because it's idea, like I said, an idea may be a simple thing, it may be a simple concept, but it being a simple concept doesn't mean that people are going to naturally gravitate towards it
yeah, for sure. For
or be
sure.
able to execute it. And so, yeah, I know I've been and I talk to people about reselling and stuff. And well, what do I have to do to resell? Well, you need to list your stuff online. Okay. And you go through the steps of doing it. And what happens is you go through all the steps of doing the thing, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, they find a way not to do it.
Mm,
It's crazy. So
mm,
I love simple. I love simply executed things. I love concepts that are simple.
right.
I'm drawn into, like I tell people all the time, like one of my favorite artists is Bill Withers because of his ability to make simple concepts um easy to digest. He's able to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
complex feelings into simple things. I love that. To me, that is the peak of art. Um, but again, it goes back to it. Some people fight against that, man. They'll fight against, you know, the simple solution or whatever is because it's not easy. So,
Right.
but I get it, man.
No, I totally understand that. Give me 1 second while I'm. So another book that um I just finished reading. I think I finished reading a couple actually. This one right here, Asada,
Okay.
the an autobiography of Asada Shakur. Do you know who she was?
Oh yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the Sada Secure.
Like man, like dude, her story was like wow. Um,
Well,
she has one of those stories that's like a Rosa Parks to me, where you hear stuff, but like if you really dug into her story, you start to understand that Rosa Parks wasn't just some little girl who just refused to get off the bus. Nah, she was something different than that because her family was something different than that.
mhm,
And Asada, her aunt, just so happened to be an attorney and kind of raised her up a little bit too. You know what I'm saying? Like it was really cool. And then I understand, like she talked about Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mom,
mhm,
um, and she had stated that Tupac's mother worked as a legal assistant. So when the FBI came and they put all those charges on her, and she beat all those charges,
yep,
she understood she was extremely competent when it came to and pretty traverse when it came to law type stuff.
mhm,
So she knew what she was talking about. She knew what she was doing. Um, but yeah, I gave it a 4.8 out of 5. It would have been a 5, but there was two things that I wanted to know about that she never talked about. Um, she never talked about that they gave her life
mhm,
without the possibility of parole. Number one, they gave her life. How she escaped from jail, prison. Right, I have to go somewhere else to go find that. And then the other thing she alluded to, but she didn't really talk about, was the impact that her escaping prison had on her family.
yeah,
That's something that even if she'd have wrote a second book, I think it'd have been well worth it just to read that part of it. She talked about the Black Panther Party. She talked about she talked about when she became a part of it, how she was so happy and proud to be a part of something. And then she also talked about the inner turmoil
Yeah, yeah.
within it as well, which there was a lot of that in general. And I started thinking about us as Black people in the Black diaspora here in America in general. And I just started thinking to myself, like, man, this makes a lot of sense with the constant inner the inner bickering back and forth, and everybody wants to be bigger than the program.
Well, and a lot of it kind of set the stage for what COINTELPRO actually was just disinformation. It was really propelled by people's paranoia and ego and stuff like that. It was planting the seeds. It wasn't necessarily overt action within the party. Sometimes it was, Bobby Hutton, the murder Fred Hampton, all that stuff. That was overt and direct action. Other times it was just playing up on the character flaws and the personality traits of the people that were in leadership. The war between um, Huey and Eldridge Cleaver and stuff like that, and manipulating that kind of stuff, manipulating um, the He-Man Boys Club shit that was going on, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it, because and it goes back to, and I don't know how aligned this is with the podcast, but there's an element when we talk about movements, right? um there's going to be multiple arms to a movement, right? There is your activism wing, which is the public facing side, and your organization wing, which does all the stuff for the activists. Like, they're the ones that do all the fundraising, they're the ones that do all the propaganda work, they're the ones that do all the things that make it possible for the activists to stand up on that stage. And one of the things that was happening in the Panthers movement specifically was Black women were really the backbone of a lot of the activist work. The things that made the organization run and function at a high level, and the organization piece. But they were getting shoved out of leadership roles, and replaced by cats that weren't necessarily as skilled as doing what they were doing. And it
Mm-hmm.
also, they were replaced by people who were assets for the government. There's a lot of
Yeah,
layers to it
true,
too.
true, true.
And so that's one of the things that destroyed the movement. But
Yeah, she talked about that quite a bit too.
when we talk about COINTELPRO, people mistake, like, they act like it was, it's not just, the assassinations or capturing the political prisoners. It was a very strong disinformation and uh, it was kind of a mental warfare kind of thing. That these two leaders have egos, and all I need to do is stoke the fires between them and create suspicion to the point where you're suspicious of everything and everybody's jumping at shadows, and no organization can survive that.
Hmm.
Especially if you can drive the wedge between the organizing side of the organization and the activist side. Who's going to run the presses? Like, it was down to that. Like, they had presses and stuff. They had people whose job it was to make sure that the armaments were taken care of and secured. You had people who made sure that people's bail funds were taken care of. Like, there's people behind the scenes that made a lot of the on the ground work. Who's organizing these meetings, who's reaching out to these venues, who's doing all that. And that was a huge part of it. And so it's heartbreaking to kind of see it. But I mean, COINTELPRO never really changed. It just changed targets. Never really stopped. It officially stopped, but it never really stopped. Did you ever get a chance to watch that Dare documentary I told you about?
I did. That's
Okay.
in it.
Okay.
Daryl Gates.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
what he was doing. Yeah.
yeah, that's reminiscent. Like, he was doing, like, he was copying a lot of what Hoover was doing. He was just doing it on the LAPD level, um, and gaining information and gaining intel and leverage on all these political actors within that space. And so he was able to a degree, the people that could be influenced, he could influence them. The people that could be blackmailed, he could blackmail them. Or the people that weren't susceptible to blackmail, you can threaten their families and stuff like that. So there's layers to it. But yeah, it was, they tested out a lot of the work that they do on an international scale on us.
Hmm.
It locally, domestically, they tested out a lot of that psychological warfare stuff on us.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if they. I mean, and again, you're right. They tested it, but here's the thing. I think that it already. They knew that it would already work anyway because of what Germany was doing to their people over there. But here's the other thing, though, too, because remember, Edward Bernays came from over there. Well, not technically, no, he came from here,
Hmm.
but his uncle, um, Sigmund Freud, came from Germany, and they were like, all right, well, what can we do here?
Hmm.
Kind of doing some of the same stuff or whatever. So we've always been into um, we've always been into marketing and advertising
Yeah.
or menticide or brainwashing, however you want to call it.
Well,
We've always been on that.
well, I mean, even the concept of, um, the thing about the healthy breakfast, that's a marketing campaign. The entire, I think it was, I don't know if it was the orange juice industry or the bacon industry or the eggs industry. One of them was in charge of, it was a marketing campaign and saying, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. This is what a healthy breakfast looks like. That was a marketing campaign. It wasn't based on any research or anything.
No,
It was just accepted, and fortunately, on some levels, the science aligned with it well after the fact. There wasn't any research that happened before. The Whoever was in charge of these industries said, "Hey, we need to sell more of blah." And the way we do that is by telling them that before you go off to go to work or school, a breakfast consists of these items, these staple items. Um, and so we've always been susceptible to broad influence. And marketing is not, I mean, they were doing marketing before we even had radio. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And so, but I think from that, I think there's a level of, when you talk about the charismatic leader, right? There is a specific psychological profile that, in most cases, it's not all. Um, it's not all cases, but there's certain psychological profiles of what is a charismatic leader, right? And so, if you are running a program whose job it is to play upon those psychological profiles and manipulate them to a specific nefarious end, if you understand the psychology of what typically a charismatic leader is like, you can easily weave a program to manipulate them. And I think that's what happened with the Panthers. I think they kind of drew up um, an archetype of what the character flaws of a charismatic leader are, and then they just played the playbook based on the information that they got, the intel that they got, um, and said, okay, this person's insecure about that. There already seemed to be some messaging problems. At the time, I think Eldridge was over in Africa
Hmm.
and trying to be, and trying to call the shots, and it was a whole mess. So, but it wasn't just the Panthers either. Like, there are a lot of other organizations that were adjacent to that. The American Indian movement fell under that blade. There's some women's movements that fell under that. Some LGBTQ movements that fell under that. I know in Chicago specifically, when we talk about the theater of Chicago for the Black Panthers, um, the Young Patriots, there was the Real Rainbow Coalition. Have you ever seen that? The true. I'm going off on a huge tangent, but follow me. Have you ever seen the Real Rainbow Coalition? I think that's what it's called. It was on PBS. You know the Rainbow Coalition, like you're familiar with that phrasing, right?
Yes.
Okay. What Jesse Jackson, the one he talks about. Before Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition, there was a Rainbow Coalition in Chicago. It was the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, and the Black Panthers. The Young Lords were Puerto Rican and other Puerto Rican, and there were some South American groups in there too, and some Mexican groups, kids mixed up in there. The Young Patriots were white kids, working class white kids, and the Panthers were the Panthers, right? They created an alliance, and were going against the police, harassing and beating working class people. That was the Rainbow Coalition. There was an entire thing where initially the Young Patriots symbol was a Confederate flag, and they actually had to sit down and have a meeting with the Panthers. The Panthers like, hey, it's not it's a symbol for us because a lot of us are transplants or second generation Southern kids. This is what it represents to us. And the Young Patriots actually said, okay, if it offends y'all, we'll put it down and find something else. But the coalition was Black, Latino, and working class white kids. And COINTELPRO attacked that too.
Well, yeah, I mean, matter of fact, that's why Fred Hampton lost his life.
Yeah.
Because he had brought all them together. And they talked about it in the movie, the Black Messiah too. But again, I don't think that they understood just how far like Fred Hampton had really gathered those guys together, and that they were all on the same page with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just how strong that was. And they're like, oh, he gotta go.
Right.
Like they tried to off that dude several times.
Yeah.
The United States government tried to kill this man several times. Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. And they tried to, and then, they essentially executed this man next to his pregnant wife at the time. And then, they made fun of, they were laughing about it and stuff like that. Like it was really a deliberate hit. It was like an actual hit.
It wasn't like it was.
It was an actual hit. It was a
like they assassinated him.
Extrajudicial murder. It was an assassination, and that's really what it was. And the way the country was set up, and even the way the history books remember it, they act like it was some kind of shootout or anything. This man was asleep in his bed when they did it.
Correct.
And there's a lot.
It wasn't just that he was asleep in his bed. He was in his bed drugged.
Yeah.
Drugged in his bed. Drugged.
So, there's a lot that ties into that. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, one of the things is I know not everybody had the benefit of kind of growing up the way I did, where my grandma was a curator at the Black History Museum when I grew up. Like that's and so I spent a lot of time there when I was little. And my mom's house was basically like a Black History Museum, like books and books and books and books. Like I stayed in those books and stuff. And so that's the environment I came up in. And so I didn't have to rely upon the school to teach me about a lot of this stuff. I got some firsthand stuff from her, dealing with the Panthers specifically in Omaha, because she was involved in that piece of it. And so there's information that I have access to and stuff that it makes me sad that a lot of, there's going to be a lot of kids, not just Black kids, but a lot of kids in general that will not get access to this level of information because it's only in books now. And the books that they have access to in the school library have been edited and sanitized, so they don't have access to this information.
And I mean, and the way that it's starting to kind of look or whatever, it almost seems like there's a war on information.
Oh yeah, anti-intellectualism.
And there's a war on that, and whether people understand it or not, I'm gonna explain how serious this is. During the Cambodia, Khmer Rouge, or whatever, when they went through And if you wore glasses, they murked you.
Yeah.
And they wanted if you wore glasses and you were still a farmer, they would still put one in you. Like that you were gone. They did not want any intellectualism there, period. There was a guy I was just watching, I think TikTok or Amazon, Instagram about him, but he was a doctor and his wife was pregnant during that whole thing that they had there during the killing camps. His wife was going into labor on the field. He could not help his wife without giving away that he was a doctor. He watched his wife and his child unborn die on the ground. There's nothing he could do about it. Now, I mean, technically he could have, and then they all would have been dead. Yeah. Right? So years later, he comes to America, this and the other, blah, 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 blah. He ends up getting killed on the street for his gold watch.
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Well, you survive all that to come here and get murked for a watch.
Well, and I know we talked about, we're far afield of what the topic is, but it's more of an interesting conversation, I think.
I did say that this would be a conversation that we're supposed to be talking about, but we will be talking about other things. So
one of the interesting things is I remember it had to be like 6 years ago now, with the entire slavery is a choice concept that EA rolled out there. And it's interesting that you talk about that. A lot of times people assume that, well, he could have made the choice. Well, he couldn't. I mean, fear of death isn't necessary. Like, technically it's a choice, right? Like, he could have made the choice to take action and, deliver the baby and stuff like that. But if the other option is being dead, then you really don't have a choice. Like, you're talking about existence versus non-existence, right? Like, either I continue to exist or I cease to exist, and we all cease to exist. Does that make sense? And so I think a lot of times people, when we talk about the paradox of choice, a lot of times, a person can technically choose something, but if the negative consequence outweighs, like, where it's like, or death, you don't really have a choice. You never really had a choice in the first place. If the option is, we either do this or you cease to exist. So it's really interesting when we talk about that kind of stuff. I did, while you're talking about the killing fields and stuff in Cambodia, I did a little bit of research, and so we talked about breakfast, right? Breakfast is a marketing campaign for those that don't know.
What's it, the orange juice industry?
It was the bacon industry.
Bacon. Damn it. Okay.
And so what happened was, the father of public relations was Edward Bernays.
Yeah. Which is Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Right.
Sigmund Freud's nephew, who was the father of psychology.
Yep. And so in the 1920s, Beechnut Bacon hired Bernays to boost their sales. And so he paid a doctor to agree that a hearty breakfast was healthier than a small one, and then sent it over to other 5,000 other doctors for their signatures. He got newspapers to publish the results of his petition as if it was a scientific study. So medical studies declared that bacon and eggs was the perfect healthy breakfast, and newspapers and magazines helped spread his message to millions.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fundamental thing is, and I actually did a little thing about subtext and pretext and context, right? But he recognized that people trust doctors for nutrition advice. So if I can get doctors to say it, they're going to trust it, regardless of whether there's any research into it. And so that's how bacon and eggs became our signature breakfast dish in America, because it was a marketing campaign. And then cereal makers jumped on, Kellogg jumped on, and all the other stuff. They found out, they jumped in after the fact, and then orange juice jumped in after the fact and stuff. And so it all started out as a marketing campaign. Now, not to say that you should not eat breakfast, because you know, they've kind of found out breakfast is kind of important. But understand, it didn't start out from a medical standpoint. It wasn't medical advice. It wasn't scientific medical information. It was this guy got hired by Beech Nut Bacon to hire some doctors, you know, to boost their sales. And he hired some doctors to say, breakfast is really important. And then had other doctors sign a petition and then circulated it as an ad. So,
yeah. So real fast, I wanted to kind of touch on what you were just talking about. So, like you just said before, we have this thing where we are very obedient for the most part to people in white coats. We assume that because of all their teaching, because of all their learning, because of all their education, their experience, that they know way more than we do. So we're gonna listen to them as opposed to somebody else who has no idea. And the great thing that I love about again reading is there's a book called Obedience to Authority by Stanley Milgram. Have you ever read this one?
I've heard the name. I've not read it.
Okay, let me pull it up right quick. It is an amazing book. And hold on one second. So hold on. OB. There it is. Found it. Okay, let me pull you guys in so you can. So the reason why I'm bringing this book up is because. Okay, let me know you can see it.
I can
See that? Obedience to Authority is by Stanley Milgram, and he was a sociology professor. Funny enough, he and Philip Zimbardo, who did the Stanford prison experiment, are pretty good friends too. And they actually grew up together. Funny enough. So Stanley Milgram watched the Nuremberg trials, which where the Nazis were actually put on trial in Nuremberg, Germany, to answer for their atrocities for what they did to their fellow countrymen. A majority of them kept saying, I was just following orders. I was just following orders. Wasn't personal. I was just following orders, right? And you had a whole half the world like, what? Like, no, that's not a good enough excuse. You could have said no. So that bothered Stanley.
Yeah.
So what Stanley did was he put this ad out, and it was about the ad was, hold on, let me find it, because I think if you guys kind of saw what I'm talking about. Hold on. Stanley. Hold on. Milgram's ad. Hold on one sec.
Okay.
Newspaper. Ad. Okay, I want to find it. Okay, so the ad was, and he put this out during the 1960s, promising $4.50 for 1 hour participation in a study on learning and memory. Okay, that's all it was. Okay, that's it. There was nothing more to it. Matter of fact, here we go. I just found it. Here, let me go back into. Oh, okay, never mind. I got you guys can see it. So I guess so they. Oh, god damn it. Okay. Okay, can you see? All right, so this is basically what it is. Professor Stanley Milgram, Department of Psychology at Yale. I want to take part in this study of memory and learning. I'm between the age of 20 and 50. I will be paid $4 and or yeah, $4 plus 50 cents cab fare if I participate. So this is all the whole thing was. Literally, it was a person from memory, right?
Mhm.
So why was this so important? This was so important because what happened was as soon as those people came in, you had a guy in a white coat to explain the same thing. This is from memory. Now the guy on the other side of the wall, every time he gets a wrong answer, you gotta kind of give him a little zap,
Yeah. Yep. Now I know where you're going with this. Okay.
right? You gotta give him a little zap. Now, the more he gets wrong, the higher the zap goes, right? The little spark, and then everybody's like, "Oh, okay, not a problem." And so they're asking him questions. He's doing okay, blah blah blah. He gets a few zaps, and then he gets more zaps because he keeps getting it wrong. And the other person, the person's right here asking the question,
Hmm.
so they can't see the guy in the other room yelling, "Hey, this hurts! Stop!" But there's a guy in a white coat sitting there telling him, "Continue, please.
Hmm.
Continue, please." He's not telling you you're not going to get the money if you don't start, if you don't stop, that we're going to discontinue this and the other. They were not threatening in any way. The only thing that the doctor said was, "Continue, please. Continue, please." "Oh my God, he's hurt in there." "Continue, please." That's all they said. 2 words. "Continue, please." That was it. And this guy, it went up so much that he's in there screaming for his life. Now, here's the thing: the guy in the other room was just an actor.
Yeah. I was. Yeah. That's right. I remember
He was
this one
just an
now.
actor. It wasn't real. But the people sitting on the other side kept pushing that button, kept pushing that button, kept pushing that button, and he's over there screaming, "I have a heart condition." Zap. "Continue anyway, please. Continue anyway, please." Kept zapping him to the point where you couldn't hear him anymore.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so, um, I think Liberty's back again.
Yep.
As surprised that 65% participants continue to administer shocks up to maximum 450-volt level, despite the learner's pleas and apparent collapse. Yes,
Yep.
they just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And a lot, like Liberty said, there was a large percentage. I didn't get the percentage myself because I read the book like years ago, but I know it was more than half of the people. They basically would have killed this guy,
Yeah.
all because a guy in a white coat told them, "Continue, please."
Well.
That was it. So it's so again, when we're looking at this type of stuff, I'm like, man, yeah,
Well.
that's very scary.
Well. And it goes back to this. So one of the things I know, doing like doing emergency shelter work, working with kids that are in crisis, where you're dealing with kids that are actively, may encounter like psychosis, self harming, things like that. A lot of times, when you're in the midst of a crisis situation or a super unfamiliar situation, because I won't necessarily equate this to a crisis situation, but it feels like a crisis situation because it's such an unusual situation that people found themselves in. A lot of times, uh, most people shut their minds off and they're just waiting to be instructed. So you see it a lot.
Yeah,
You see
yeah, you do.
you see it a lot. I don't know if you've ever, like, I've been in the situation where something catastrophic has happened and somebody's really injured and somebody needs to call 911 and everybody just stands around.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the reason why you have to point to the person.
Yeah.
You,
I've
blah 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 blah. You have to point to them to do it. Yes.
I've actually had to do that. It works. You
Yep.
call 911
Yes.
because everybody
You.
else is standing around
Yep.
watching.
Yep.
Because here's the thing, and I don't know if it's necessarily attributed to it, but it's just I'm my mind puts together desperate things, right? Like disparate ideas. Um, there's such thing as called negative panic. normalcy bias, right? And there was this case, and I'm going to absolutely butcher a lot of the details, but I'll give you the gist of it. Airplane crash happened, right?
Mm.
Plane was taking off, and another plane hit it while it was coming off, while I was trying to taxi off the runway. Okay, a lot of the people who were on the plane that was still on the tarmac that got hit had time to get out of that plane. The people that survived reported seeing people sitting there staring at the fire.
Oh wow.
And the only a couple they saved people's lives by saying, get up and get moving.
Yes.
Because what happened was, and the idea was, people were sitting there staring at this thing that their mind was having a hard time wrapping around. And it's not like an animal that gets paralyzed in fear, right? It's not the same mechanism. It's, if I stare at this thing and pretend the situation is normal, it will go back to being normal. It's called negative panic. It happens with first responders a lot. If you're not familiar, what to do when somebody starts shooting, it could happen there too. And I've been in the situation where somebody starts shooting. A lot of times people will freeze because in their minds, if I pretend the situation is normal, it will resume to being normal again. And a lot of people sat there and stared as the fire on that plane approached them, just because they couldn't wrap their minds around what was happening.
Right.
And their instinct was, I need to sit here and pretend like this thing is normal so it can go back to being normal. There's a specific other percentage of people who said, holy shit, the plane's on fire, we got to get out of here. And a lot of it depends on if you've been in a situation like that, or if you've been in a life-threatening situation where you had to make a decision. If you've been in a crisis situation, it can dictate a lot of that stuff. And so I do believe there's an element of that happens as well. You're in this weird environment where this man is asking you to shock people, and the guy in the white coat is sitting there like, continue. You're looking at him to say, all right.
Like he said, please continue.
Yeah.
Let's get that right.
You're looking at him to
please continue.
You're looking at the authority to say, hey man, this is getting out of hand. And since he's not doing it, everything must be normal on the up and up. This must happen all the time. And that's how people are programmed. And it's not, it goes back to this. Like we had this conversation before. People assume that it has something to do with your intelligence. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. It's the same thing like you see with cult, like a cult, right? People assume that people who are in cults are dumb or have lesser intelligence. People with above average intelligence are more susceptible to being in a cult, because their sense of pattern recognition is strong, and because of that, intelligence is typically measured by people's ability to connect dots and recognize patterns. So if you are somebody who has a higher level of intelligence, or what they consider that to be, typically it is, can you recognize patterns faster? A lot of times, especially when you start getting into conspiracy theory thinking and stuff like that, you're dealing with somebody whose pattern recognition system is haywire. And a lot of times a cult leader can play upon somebody's ability to recognize patterns and pull them into their flock really easily. So a lot of times you'll find that people who get pulled into cults are not stupid. It's harder to get a simple a person who thinks in a straighter line to join a cult. It's easier if you could tickle their pattern recognition and you start showing them patterns and your inner knowledge and everything. They defer to you as an authority. It's a really interesting thing.
I mean, right, but I mean, unless you bypass a person's logic and all that stuff, or whatever, which does happen, quite often as well. Because did you ever hear about the person that they called a fast food restaurant and basically took them hostage over the phone?
Yeah,
where he told the person that you need to go in and sexually assault your other coworker.
Yeah,
he ends up doing it, and the guy was never even in the same room with him or nothing.
Yeah,
he's just on the phone with him.
Bypass.
So like if you're able to bypass all that conscious awareness, bro, you got a problem.
And that's the concept. Like, you can override, like, And I think I think maybe that's the takeaway from this. Being intelligent, being aware of it, doesn't make you immune to it. It doesn't make you immune to marketing. It
Right.
doesn't
Yeah.
make you immune to that kind of manipulation. If somebody can bypass your logic centers, and it's not hard to do, and our children bypass our logic centers
All the
all the
time.
time. Our spouses bypass our logic centers all the time. Our friends, our loved ones. It's not a negative thing. We shut off our logic centers because of an emotional connection or somebody who just knows us. And it's not hard for a stranger to do. I used to tell parents all the time, hey, you need to make sure that your kid develops critical thinking skills, because a lot of times when the kid leaves your house, they're looking to connect with an authority figure, and that authority figure ain't always an adult. The authority figure can be another kid, because this kid knows how to bypass this other kid's logic center and get them to do whatever they want them to do. So it's interesting things, and that's why with the cult leader bypasses your logic center by showing you all these connections where you thought, well, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense on this higher level. Well, all of a sudden now they're doing your thinking for you. You're deferring to them. Dude calling the McDonald's and getting those employees to assault. It was a little girl that got assaulted. Getting to them to assault the little girl. He did it because this person was subservient. They had to yield to what they perceived to be an authority on the other end.
That part.
And the authority overrode this person's logic. Now, sometimes the other way around, you can override your logic to ignore an authority because you don't like that authority. So it does cut both ways.
Right. But so this is actually one of the things I wanted to show Liberty as we were discussing certain things or whatever. They stated that that's how things like the Holocaust happened, because good people did evil things because they were told to. And I remember reading this book called Ordinary Men. And if you actually, I don't know if you can actually see the subtitle, but it's Reserve Police Battalion 101 and the Final Solution in Poland. And basically what it was is these individuals didn't make the cut to become SS soldiers. But what they were doing is they were going into these small rural type of countrysides or whatever, and picking out all of their Jewish community and basically, wiping them off the face of the earth that way, right? Because they weren't going to take them to Auschwitz or any of that other stuff or whatever, so they were just popping in wherever they could find them. But there were a lot of people that could not do that. Like, to be an SS soldier, a lot of people think that a lot of them were just like that. They were not. Some of them were like, no, I'm not. I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they usually would have to go do something else. So they weren't at the prisons, or if they were at the prisons, they were doing the cooking, or they were watching other stuff, or they were doing clerical type stuff or whatever. Not every one of the Nazis were murderers, because they're still men and women or whatever. But in Poland, when they were finding these small little rural towns, they would find them and they were having them do some horrible things or whatever. Now, some people, and that's just like in today's time, you'll probably find more people today that'll murk you than you probably would not. But you're still gonna find people that's like, nah, I'm cool on that. Regardless of what they've done, I don't feel like that's not in my purview to do something like that to them. But then there's somebody else who don't give two fucks. It's like, oh yeah, nah, that's directly in my purview.
Yeah.
And I don't care what they've done. Who needs it, right? So what they would do is, real quick, because they couldn't wrap their minds around executing children. So what they would do is they would shoot the mother first. And then that way they could execute the children, because there was a certain word that they used in the in the German language or the Polish language, where you cannot survive without the mother, and they thought that it would be horrific for you to 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 kill them, but not her, or vice versa. So it's kind of like a mercy killing, if you will,
Well,
that you would kill mom, but even then, it's how they were doing it, because a lot of them had never been around blood like that, and they were murdering people, and they knew that. So what they would have to do is they'd have to turn them around so they weren't facing the other person. They would take their weapon and they would shoot them in the back of the cerebellum, because then they would just drop. Once you disconnect that brain stem from the stem or whatever, you're done anyway.
well, it's dehumanization, and that's the danger of dehumanizing language too, because that's like the very first step is when we start
Right.
dehumanizing people.
So isn't that funny when
Yeah.
our president during Charlie Kirk's memorial said, "I hate my enemy"?
Mm-hmm. It's dehumanizing language.
I was like, whoa.
Well, and I remember was it something
Whoa.
yeah. Once you're able to thoroughly and effectively dehumanize your target or the people that you're up against, it becomes really, 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 really easy to justify anything because you no longer. So a lot of times a lot of times I've heard it mentioned specifically during Vietnam. That's why during Vietnam there was a lot of use of racial slurs
Yeah.
because the slurs are the things that remove the humanity from the enemy. And if you can strip that humanity away from the enemy, it makes it easier to kill because they're no longer people. They're whatever that slur
Yeah,
is.
whatever that slur is. Yeah. You know what's really crazy about that too is but one of my good friends, Michelle, her dad, I was looking at some photos that because he was in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, John, what is that? What is this that you guys are holding? And it was a Vietnamese guy's head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm like, I don't know why I asked. How did you get that? He said, because we cut it off. Why? Hatred. Like, think about it, like hatred.
Yeah.
You flew all the way over there to do that to somebody who, for the most part, has never done anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
Never done anything to you. But because our government told you that they are the enemy. And then there's another book in that called Kill Anything That Moves, where that's exactly what they did. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that Philip Zimbardo talked about in his book. What was that book called? The Lucifer Effect. Is what do you think is going to happen when you take away all accountability and you give a 19-year-old an automatic weapon?
That's what they intended to happen.
What did you expect to happen?
Well, and
what did you think was going to happen?
And that's the real tragedy for a lot of people that are coming back from these being deployed is, we talk about jobs and things like that, and that's super important to make sure people are employed or whatnot. But the psychological off ramp of coming from a place of where this, is killed or survive, and that's kind of the thing, and then expecting them to just be able to reintegrate into society with all the trauma, like that stuff doesn't go away. That's why people still have nightmares about that stuff. And it's a glaring deficit in our country that they don't really provide that psychological off ramp for people. Here's the thing. And so it was something I discussed yesterday on a stream. Like when people talk about like environmental violence, like, right? Environmental violence is violence that happens in your environment. In my old life, when I was running my shelter, I happened to be sitting in on a CDC presentation about environmental violence. And they had the gentleman, and he's presenting, and he was taking questions from the crowd. And his research was child soldiers. And it was kind of interesting to me because I actually had
okay.
it was interesting to me because I actually had I had 2 kids that were child soldiers in my care at different times.
From Africa?
One from Africa, another one from, well, I can't necessarily say because I don't know if there's still legalities attached to it. But one was specifically from Africa. I'll test to that piece of it. Not illegalities like I did, but I don't know what this kid's status is currently, and I'm not trying to get anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, it was another country outside
Yeah,
of Africa.
yeah, it was another country outside of Africa,
Oh, on another continent.
on another continent,
Gotcha.
in a place where we have been at war.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, and so anyway, it was about the presentation was about child soldiers, and he's talking about the impacts of environmental violence and what that does to a brain that is developing, where your gunshots, people get killed, your friends, your peers might get killed, family members might get killed, right? And what that does. And so my question was, because the population of kids that I had worked with, I said, have we applied any of these frameworks to kids that are in gangs domestically? Kids that are involved in street gangs? Because I'd had a couple of kids that were gang involved, and they self-reported. And one that was reported to me told me the whole story. Like, I had to actually talk him down because he's recounting the whole story about it. His brother who got shot and killed and died in his arms. This is a 15-year-old boy.
Oh, wow.
And this wasn't the first person that he experienced that with. And so I asked, and it was just out of curiosity, I asked that guy, have we done any similar studies in the United States with kids that are gang involved? And he looked at me and he considered it, and he's like, we need to. This is a gentleman, he's a researcher at the CDC. His entire thing is research. They had never really made that connection.
Because they didn't care.
They didn't care, but he did. Okay, this guy actually, the they is the U.S. government, like the funders, like the ones that are going to kick in the funds for it, right? This guy actually, when I talked to him afterwards, he was interested in starting that up. Like, he's like, okay, I got to figure this out. So on the surface level, he cared. The people that were in charge of the purse strings don't. Right? And that's how research happens a lot of times in this country. The people that hold the purse strings typically don't care about the outcomes of the research because they only see the profit model and how we can benefit off of it. But I think his research was specifically useful for them, the psychiatric effects of war on the minds of people who are actually kids themselves who sign up for military service and bringing them back into society. And so that was the approach. That was what he was talking about. And just talking about how experiencing violence shapes your brain at a young age. But I mean, we can go into the whole story about, how research has kind of been maligned in this country and whatnot. And the outrageous, a lot of times for news poorly understands research because they don't really report research findings. They report research that's happening, but they don't really interpret what the findings are for you because it's not easy to extrapolate that and explain it to an audience of people that aren't familiar with how research works. And so that's when you get stories like, I think the biggest example was they got the shrimp that's running on the treadmill and we're paying millions of dollars for that. Well, they put the shrimp on the treadmill to figure out, think of how marine animals process waste. Marine animals process food, waste in water, and how they process poison in water, and how it affects our food supply. That's why but it sounds crazy when you say they put the shrimp on the treadmill. Well, shrimp was on treadmill for this specific reason. And because we don't really understand how research works, we just poo-poo all of it and think it's all bullshit. And that specific thing, it sounds disconnected, but it is. I mean, the reason why it was getting funding was because they were utilizing it for people that are coming back from war to help them adjust to society. And their scant resources do it. Now, going back to this, the idea of that normal person yielding to the authority figure and the removal of humanity from their targets. This goes back to the Stanford prison experiment because it happens in jails all the time. It happens in residential facilities all the time. It happens in police forces all the time. When you remove the humanity from the people that you're interacting with, anything can happen. That's why it's dangerous to have that us when people talk about all this, the big swinging dick law enforcement, that kind of thing, where you don't know what it's like to survive on the streets and all that stuff, and you're up against animals and stuff. That kind of thinking is what makes community relations hard.
Yeah.
Because you've otherized the people that they're supposed to be interacting with a lot of times, and more times than not, cops don't work in their own neighborhood, so it's already easy to otherize that population of people.
There's a book. Hold on, I'm gonna put our stuff in our notes. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. I just put our notes in for that. I'm gonna grab this other book right here quick because you need to see this one. But anyway, there's a book. Hold on 1 second. Let me find it. Oops. This guy, right here. Hold on, where you at? Okay. This guy right here, he wrote this book. Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
I've heard of that book too.
Yep, I read this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, I forgot. I don't know what I gave this book, but by the time I was done reading it, I was so fucking pissed. I was so pissed because this is one of those books that all the kids in West Point have to read before they graduate or whatever. But so if I don't know if you can see the subtitle, but it's the psychological cost of learning to kill in war and society. This right here, this guy. Let me try. I need to. Okay, Lieutenant Dave Grossman. You need to see this guy. Like, and I'm not joking. Hold on, Dave Grossman. I'm gonna tell you why. And again, I'll tell anybody who will listen to me. This dude's a fucking pussy ass coward. This man is a fucking coward, and I'll tell his whole ass to his fucking face that coward. This dude, he's the one that goes into all of these police places.
Yeah, I know where you're going with it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
This is the guy, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever want to know why it is that most cops feel like they're at war, it's because of this douchebag right here.
They're actually getting lawsuits behind. Like, this company was getting lawsuits behind this.
This motherfucker goes in and he tells everybody that it's a them against you. You guys are the fucking heroes. You guys are this. You're lawful. They need to listen to you. You're the authority out there. This is a war, and they're the enemy. You guys are there to protect and serve. It's this motherfucker right here. Why cops feel like they have so much power between him and the United States government. And that qualified immunity is the reason why people feel like they can do whatever they want. I listened to this guy, the Saint. I don't know if you ever listen to him, but I kind of stopped. He kind of arrogant on certain shit or whatever. But anyway, I know he would dog me for saying that, but it is what it is.
Who?
The Saint. That's like the Saints.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But anyway, so that's his podcast. Anyway, he was talking to this woman. He's, I guess, trying to be the next Samuel. What's his name? Kevin Samuels.
Oh, God.
And so he was talking to this woman.
We don't need another one then.
Right, that part. He was talking to this woman, and they had got into this debate or whatever an argument. It wasn't even a debate. But he told her straight up, he said, the only reason why you feel comfortable to talk to me like this is because of three numbers. If you didn't have access to those three numbers, you wouldn't be talking to me like that. She's like, what three numbers? He said 911.
My mom would have shot his ass. Like, I,
Like off top, like dead ass. Like,
yeah.
and here's the thing. And on one hand, I totally understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like I 100% get it, because I know people that are like that, men and women, mostly women though, that can pop off, talk shit, this, that, and the other, blah 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 blah, and you step two, not necessarily myself per se, but you step two, like, oh, hey man, I'll just call the cops. But if you can't get to a phone and you about to get rocked, all of a sudden these motherfuckers are quiet as shit.
I've actually,
You know, so this guy right here, he's like the quintessential call the cops type of motherfucker. And then not only that, but he talked about like the bravery of the people that have taken another person's life. And he's like, I've never done it, but I revel in the
so why is he writing a book about all
dead ass?
Why is he writing a book about the psychology of killing people?
He's never fucking done it.
Okay.
He's never done it.
So
but he fucking wants to. So he fucking wants to. That's my fucking point.
So this jumps back. Do you ever watch there's an old Patrice O'Neill special that he did before he passed? And he said this phrase, and it's always stuck with me. It's the promise of middle management. The promise of middle management. The fact that I get to have control and power over somebody. Doesn't matter that there are people above me that got control over me. I only care about the fact that I'm in control, in charge of somebody else. He strikes me as that. A lot of the guys in that red pill space kind of strike me as that. A lot of alleged alpha males that I meet online or interact with online are like that. Yeah. A lot of guys that do that entire theater of abuse and stuff at their homes are kind of like that. A lot of guys that are weak in their real life, the only place they can feel powerful is in this specific context or frame. And by God, they're going to do it. I see it a lot with fast food workers, right? Like, that's why a lot of people are assholes to fast food workers. I see, they don't have any power anywhere else in their life, but they can absolutely make this person's life hell.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. I used to be one of those fast food dudes, like when I was 17, 18, 19, and I know what I was doing to people's food. So I'm going to tell you off top, well, I don't care what kind of mood I'm in. I'm yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. Have an amazing day. How's your day going? This, that, and the other. Hey, man, thank you guys so much for what you do. I'm that guy. Because I don't ever fuck with somebody who can fuck with your money, and don't ever mess with somebody who make your food and you can't see what they doing.
Well, and it's
so I'm good on that.
And I think a lot of times people, that's the only place they feel powerful. It's really a sad thing to see. When it's like, so this is only like I've had it where, and I might make I was been back and forth considering doing this. A couple years ago, I was online in some kind of political thing with somebody. And some dude said, well, Bryon Hill, if you don't like it, you can go back to Africa. And so I screenshot and saved that message. And I was almost considering making it the headliner on my Facebook. Like the headline on my Facebook. But I'm like, I'm not taking my kids down to put that kind of stuff out there. I'm saying all that to say this. I've had more people who jump in my inbox with that tough guy, and it is a specific argument. I don't want to stereotype, but typically the person that does this is on that right side persuasion in that MAGA camp, where I've actually had to say, here is my business address. I am here at this time, from this time to this time. If this is how you feel, we can come talk to me about it. I've actually had to do that. Oh, I'm just joking. I'm not. Yeah, I know. Because it's easy to say stuff to people online, right? It's easy to do a lot of that stuff. It's easy to feel all powerful online where you can just pop off to anybody you want to whenever you want to. And I had actually had to tell a guy, it was on, by the way, for the news networks out there, your Facebook comments are the worst place in the world. Like on news stories on Facebook, you know what I'm talking about? Like Channel 6, Channel 7, the comment section when they post a news story.
I don't say nothing. I just read them.
Yeah, some of the most racist stuff you'll ever find. I actually had to tell a guy, like, hey, man, I'm right down the street from you.
Yeah.
I'm right around the corner. Oh, I was just playing around. I know. Don't talk to people like that, man. Like, I look at your profile picture. Like, I see this guy out in public all the time. Like, dog, I see you. Your face, I recognize your face, bro. And I think a lot of times people operate in these spaces where, you know, I don't walk around like I'm Mr. Bulletproof. I'll beat everybody's ass. I'm not that. That's not who I'm on. I don't even be on that violent stuff. But at the same time, I mean, keep the same energy when it's face to face. Like if you wouldn't say it to my face, don't say it to me online. And I find that there's some connective tissue there with the people that have to have specific contexts in order for them to feel like they're in charge of something. And once they become in charge, once they feel like they're in charge, they turn into tyrants. Like you said with fast food workers, they turn into tyrants. Here's somebody I think I have control over, and so I'm gonna be a complete asshole to them. Do it with service workers, you know.
So Liberty, I like how you said that. You said that, but spend some time with cops watching body cam videos on YouTube, and you'll understand why cops feel the way that they do. It's a scary, dangerous job with a lot of people who have zero respect for the need for order, and in a split second, stuff happens. First and foremost, I 100% understand that. And I sympathize with that. First and foremost, I'm one of the guys that I actually thank cops for what they do because it is a job I would never apply for. I do not want whatsoever. I don't want it. So I applaud cops all day long. If I'm stopped, if they ever ask me any questions, I complied, no problem. Hey man, I want to get home, just like I know you want to get home. So that's how I look at it. But we're not talking about shitty cops or good cops that, bro, I'm just following the law, man. Like, dude, you ran a red light. This is what happened. I ran your name. This is what I found. It ain't fucking personal. We're talking about those individuals like this guy right here that we're talking about. He is a fucking agitator where his whole objective is to agitate cops who are already agitated in general, who automatically already know that most of the people out there don't respect them.
Like it's a guy living this tough guy fantasy. He's living this tough guy fantasy through cops.
That's what he's doing. And there's a word that we used last week called, so what was it? Stochastic.
Yeah.
What was it? Stochastic
terrorism. Yeah.
Which basically means I'm going to go agitate you people to piss you off enough that if one of you guys do something to the other person, I get to sit with my hands up and say, I didn't do anything. I didn't tell you to go do that. I just told you to protect yourself. Yes, that's the reason why this fucking guy gets sued all the fucking time, because he's agitating these cops to go out and go do shit, and then keeps his hands up. He says, that's not what I told them to do. Right. I'm basically telling them that they should be careful. So, and then not only that, but what Bryon alluded to before, a lot of the cops that are in the so-called inner city don't live there.
Yeah, so they can do
I remember when I was younger, the cops that were in our neighborhood, they knew all of us. all of us. And it's a totally different dynamic when everybody knows the police that are policing their neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. We
When
had.
they know you by name, oh, that's Officer Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's Officer such and such. Oh, he cool as fuck. He let such and such off on whatever. You know those people because when somebody says, "Oh, who's that?" Oh, that's Officer blah blah blah. No, he cool. That's community involvement.
Yeah. How real can we get on this, Fearless? How real can we get on this? Because I'm about to.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's go, man.
All right.
I mean,
So
what? Let's go.
When I was growing up, here we had the Black Officers Union, right? And we knew the kids in where I'm from. We knew a lot of the cats that were in the Black Officers Union, right? And a lot of them dudes was really cool, and they would tell you which cops to watch out for.
Yes.
The black the cops that were even some of the white cops who were actually cool, like watch out for such and such.
The white ones would tell you that
who
dude
the
over
stay away
there.
From.
Man, if you got anything on you, if you smell like whatever, stay away from that dude.
Or they'll say this guy's a freak. Keep your kid, make sure you watch your little sister around him. Like it was that kind of. And so for me, yeah, it could be a tough job. I understand that. That
Very
doesn't
much.
mean, but that doesn't give
man.
that's not licensed to, like I'll be a real sexually assault kids on the beat, which I've actually seen and had to deal with as a kid. One of my best friends was beaten by the cops in 7th grade by a bunch of adults, beating up a 7th grader. And so the job being tough, a lot of us have. I've worked hard jobs. It didn't rationalize their actions.
Yes, they do.
And that,
yes, they do. Liberty, yes, they do.
That's what they're saying. They do, and that's
do.
what I'm saying. That we can't wash it away. And so what I'm saying is the accountability needs to be there, because we can't go in with the presumption. Like, yes, you can't go on we don't go on the presumption that everybody in this field is inherently good or bad. But what we're saying is there should be a higher bar for the bad actors, that are a higher bar of consequence for those bad actors, because a lot of times the bad actors land in the neighborhoods where they aren't connected to, and they know people don't have any authority to push back against the negative shit that they do.
And yes,
that's all we're saying, bro. It's not,
and that's it.
There's a nuance to it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like I said before, I mean, there's certain cops that are absolutely amazing. But I personally,
okay, yes, is somebody against that?
Yes,
the guy on the screen, the guy on the screen,
the guy
on the screen is who we're talking about.
Who trains cops?
He argues against that. He fights against that.
He fights against it.
And police departments around the country
matter of fact
to train him.
Matter of fact, most of the people that you see with the Blue Lives Matter fight against the same shit that we're talking about. They fight against the same shit. Yeah, I can prove it like this. If I could do this. If instead of the uniform being blue, let's say it was gold. Okay. Let's say it was like a bright gold, almost like a yellowish color. So instead of that blue stripe that you see on the American flag, it's a gold one. Now, let's say that gold stripe symbolizes the police. Now, here's the thing. These cops, let's say they're from Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's say they're from Antarctica. And these particular cops, they don't, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but they don't like anybody who lacks color. So if you don't have any pigmentation, they don't like you. They find you off-putting. They find you disgusting to look at. They think you were born without skin. They find you gross. Now, here's the thing. most of the cops are these people, these individuals. How often would you now I'm gonna touch on something else right quick. If all the black and brown people would drive around with that gold lives matter, but you knew for a fact that those gold individuals fucking hate you with a fucking passion, what would you how would you feel about your countrymen being okay with the crimes that these people have gotten away with? And we're just like, I mean, stay out of trouble. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands where they can see it. Stop breaking the law all the time. Quit stealing shit. Quit lying. Quit infecting other cultures with your diseases. Quit doing this. Quit doing that. And not only that, but these same gold people throw a majority of you in jail. And then these same gold people create laws to throw your ass in jail too. At what point would you stop looking at that gold stripe as just a gold stripe? And you might be thinking at it like, I'm pretty sure they're trying to tell me something. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, and that's kind of how a lot of us feel pertaining towards that. Over policing does not work.
So, in
We've seen that time after time. We can show ample amounts of scientific data that shows and prove that it doesn't work.
well,
Right?
what happens is you have a bunch of cops that are in the neighborhood that are bored, and in
As
order to,
shit.
and a lot of times
Especially here in Bellevue.
they're up against, because you have to show a certain amount of activity
Yep.
while you're on the clock, otherwise you can get penalized for it. And so what'll happen is you have this cop that's doesn't that they're overrepresenting the community as a whole, and so they don't have anything to do. There's no activity to rationalize their time on the clock, and so then they'll just start manufacturing stuff to, like, just start, they'll those searches where it's not necessarily consensual, or where there's some pretextual stops and stuff. They'll generate situations like that just so that they could say that they have activity, and then you as a citizen don't really know that they were just looking for something to do, because now you might end up getting cited for something that they wouldn't have otherwise, or it just took time out of your day. It just was and so there's levels to it. That book, Fearless, The Invisible Gorilla, about cognitive about your ability to pay attention to things, and the book that I talked about that debunks eyewitness testimony.
Mhm.
One of the very first chapters is, it happened, I think it was Boston. um it was a situation with cops, and they're chasing a suspect, right? And all these cops are converging on this suspect, and some plainclothes officers, who had their badge, the guy had his badge on, but he's a black cop, but he had his badge and stuff on, joined the chase. And he's the one that actually, they got to a fence. The suspect climbed over the fence. The undercover cop, who had his badge on, it wasn't like he went on the fence, he jumped on the fence after the suspect, and the cop right behind him snatched him off the fence, and they beat the shit out of him. Those cops beat the shit out of one of their own with the badge visible, if I'm not mistaken. Like, there was some identifying things. They ignored that badge and beat him, like almost killed him. And it started a whole cascade of events. They ended up going to court and everything. Nobody came forward with who actually beat him. All those guys were around. Nobody came forward to actually tell who beat him. Now, I'm going to ask you, how many of those people that didn't say anything were good cops, or would have been considered good cops? Are they good if they're not willing to call out assaultive behavior that almost kills one of their own, just so somebody doesn't get in trouble? So that's what I'm saying, bro. Like, It's not a general statement. I'm not saying it's everybody.
no,
I'm not saying anything
no,
like that. But
no,
we do have to have some standards.
very much.
We have to have some litmus standards, because that brother was almost killed by people that were his co-workers. All these people stood around. A couple of those people participated in that beating. They know exactly who did it. They knew exactly who was guilty of doing it. Nobody wanted to say anything. So
Yeah,
that dozen or
nobody had
so.
that. They didn't have
So
the cameras on.
no, this was like 90s, so there was no cameras or
There
anything.
was no cameras. Ooh.
So the dozen or so cops that were standing around that watched one of their own officers almost get beaten to death. They know exactly who did it. Nobody said a word. So are those good cops? Even though they didn't participate in it, does that make them good?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So when we talk about that level of accountability,
And I mean, does it matter that the other guy was a cop in general?
right?
I
No,
mean, you know what I'm saying? Because
but that's what I'm saying. And so hold on, that's what I'm saying. No, they're bad. But if they check all the other boxes of not actively harming people, they're not actively harming anybody. They have a clean record and no abuse. But they will stand around and watch one of their own do something illegal or harmful. Does that make them good or bad? And so now the net broadens a little bit. Okay. I've been in situations. I used to do case management. I used to do juvenile probation. I would have to go do door knocking at the time that cops did high risk warrants. Like they were out doing high risk warrants. I was doing curfew checks in the same apartments. And sometimes I was by myself. I didn't have a badge or a gun or anything. I used to have to go to apartment complexes that police did not go without backup, by myself with a book bag and a badge. And I knew I was walking into an open air drug market. And I called my wife before I went there and said, if something happens to me, this is where I'm at. So, but that still I still didn't use that as license to, or an excuse to mistreat the people I interacted with. And so I think we have to disconnect. It's a tough job with what the expectation of behavior is, because at the same time, when we talk about choice, they have the ability not to do that. And I know people that aren't cops anymore because of that stuff.
Oh,
so
really?
you have the ability, no, because they said, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do have to. I understand tough job. It's a tough job. Okay, I get it. I understand it. And I see you're making comments, bro. I'm gonna get to those in a second. But we have to disconnect. It's a tough job from rationalizing not just bad behavior, but complicity, being complicit in the bad behavior. When I was in high school, I watched a couple of cops mace a bunch of sixth graders, mace them because the kids were walking down the sidewalk, walking home, and they didn't move out of the cop's way, so he maced them. Okay, just because he knew he could get away with it, because he knew the other people watching were little black kids, and they don't believe little black kids when we say this kind of stuff. So understand that a lot of times what we're saying is being in absolute power. When you are in a seat where you're in absolute power, that's when your true integrity comes out. When you know you sit in a seat of power.
And again, they don't even have fucking power like that. That's that middle management shit you're talking about again.
That's what I'm saying. And that's
that middle management.
That's the point I'm getting
about.
And that's so what we're asking is, this is what we're saying is, bro, Liberty, what we're saying is this is a super nuanced conversation. And when we have super nuanced conversations, we have to make sure that we're framing it as something that has a lot of layers to it. Because your nicest guy, I know cops that were fantastic guys in their community. People love them. And as soon as they crossed 72nd Street, which is the dividing line between North Omaha and the rest of Omaha, they turned into different people. I also know cops that they cross that line, they're the same cool dude that you saw any other time. But it was super contextual. And this asshole who's on the screen, he is one of the reasons why you have those guys slipping into that mind state. When I used to play football, We get hyped up to go out there. You get in a mind state to go out there
And
and
this is that's
smack
the
somebody into a
and
concussion.
that's the guy who fucking he's basically what he is. He's the general who gives the speech right before the soldiers go out to go fight.
Right.
He's the guy who's blasting the music.
And he never goes out there himself.
Never goes out
He
there
just
himself.
hypes them up to go out there and hurt people. And he never goes out there themselves. It's called throwing a rock and hiding your hands. That's who we're talking about, bro. He wrote a book. This was it, The Psychology on Killing, and then talking about what it's like and all this other stuff.
He's never done it. He's never done it.
He's never done it, but he just fantasizes about it. And that makes him more dangerous.
He interviews people that have done it. And it's kind of like what is it? Vicarious masturbation.
Yeah. He never done
vicarious masturbation.
He's never done it, but it gets him excited, the fact that other people are doing it in his name. And so that's what we're talking about. And so it's a nuanced conversation, bro. There is no, even consuming that much body cam footage. I can tell you I ran a youth shelter. The amount of kids that were trafficked that we used to get was pretty substantial. Some of the self-reports were some of their people that assaulted them were in law enforcement. Not local, some not. But they got assaulted too. And a lot of that comes from being in that seat of power and having no accountability, knowing that nobody's going to check you. And the people that you're victimizing are never going to have any power to hold you accountable whatsoever, or that thought that that's what it is. And so power introduces you to yourself. Power introduces you to yourself. When you have absolute power over somebody's life, who do you become? And not every nice guy, not every nice woman is a nice person when they're in power. They're only nice contextually. They're nice because they have to be nice because they aren't in charge of anybody. So that's what we're saying, bro. It's hyper contextual.
There's this book that I just finished reading probably about a week or so ago. Hold on, let me find it. Because that was actually one of the books that oh, okay, I'm gonna have to read that. We are all guilty here. I read that one already. God damn, did I read a lot? God damn. The Choice. Here it is. Me. Can you see this, my guy? Yeah. All right, there you go. So there's a book right here called The Choice, and she was a Holocaust survivor. And one of the things that she talked about was that when they were finally rescued, I think she ran. They didn't run, but I think they did to this one little part or whatever. But they ran into these. I think they were American soldiers or whatever, and they had them in this little house type thing, right? And it was her and her sister. And what happened was, one of the American soldiers, when he found her, was about to sexually assault her. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a therapist, and she said to me, how is it that somebody would do that? I'm sitting there listening. And I'm like, it's simple. When there's no accountability and you know that no one cares, that's when you actually know the type of monster you are. Mm-hmm. That's when you actually get to meet the monster that you truly are, or whatever. So it's either that, or if you have a badge, or hell, matter of fact, I would take the bullshit from a police officer any day of the week than a fucking president.
Yeah. Well,
if that makes any sense.
Well, somebody was talking about, because we were talking about the military, that dude David Goggins, right? Like
of course. Yes, I've read both of his books.
Okay, so there was a guy on who has a YouTube channel, and he's special forces, like all the special forces certifications and stuff, has been in the same theaters and stuff. And he came out and said, he straight up said, he's like, I need you guys to understand something. And he's like, I'm including myself in this statement. When we're talking about guys that have that level of service, we're talking about psychopaths. That goes into the psychological profile in order to be able to make that in a lot of cases.
Okay.
He's like, normal people can't do this. And he's like, internally, we talk about, do not allow these guys around your wife. He's like, I will lay down my life for them. He's like, I wouldn't trust them in my house. And he said, because in order to be able to survive and exist and do some of those things, some of those missions, you have to be able to shut off your morality like that and completely disassociate from it. And he's like, and he uses David Goggins' examples. And when you see him, and because I know that there was a lot of, there was something going on where he ripped somebody off, like Goggins ripped somebody off. There's some fraud allegations floating around and stuff. He's like, stop giving your money to these guys. And when, he's like, listen to what they say. They give good advice. But when it comes to any kind of thing that involves your trust, do not put your faith or trust in these guys, just because of how we are programmed to survive in special forces. Like, it was crazy. And he had a whole YouTube video about it. And a lot of it was his YouTube channel was talking about the adjustments and getting back into society and stuff like that. Sure. And so he's like, and I'm including myself. He's like, I see that in myself. I know that was part of my psychological profile was psychopathy. It was crazy. It was really eye-opening. But that's what we're talking about, contextual, right? Those guys have to be contextually psychopaths.
Right.
To exist over there. And so when you are contextually a psychopath, that's when you start getting into some of those awful behaviors. And so it's like, he's like, you listen to what they say. If they got good advice, don't idolize these guys, because there's nothing to idolize about them. And he's like,
correct.
Myself,
correct.
And he's like, myself included. And so what we're doing is we're taking that context and kind of spinning it down to, again, that guy that you showed on the screen. And the only difference between the main difference between him and those guys is those guys actually served. Those guys actually were in the shit. This guy sits on the sidelines and amps up cops to go hurt people. And that's that.
Yeah,
because
he cheers on bullshit from the stadium.
Yeah, and so that's a different thing. Like I said, it's the difference. Like when we football, you go through your rituals before a game. You listen to the music. You get charged up, knowing that you can go out there and possibly paralyze somebody, and you gotta be okay with. You don't want to, and that's not what your intention is. But you have to be in a certain mind state to be able to do that stuff. And so, I remember, you'd be damn near psychotic by the time you're ready to hit the field.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was. And so that's all I'm saying, y'all. Man, we went.
But again, we do love cops. I like I said before, I take my hat off to them, because that's a job that I would not want myself by no means. Like, I'm good on that shit. Like, no, thank you, or whatever. And I do respect the hell out of anybody who can keep putting that badge on every single day. But again, I'm still not going to excuse bullshit for more bullshit.
Yeah.
Like in general, regardless of who it is or what they do. And unfortunately, cops have not always had a good rapport or relationship with certain communities.
Yeah.
Like that has been like that. So again, I'm not saying that they're all like that, but you're also talking about at what point and what time did things start to change as well. Our government can say that, well, there's no slavery anymore. Well, that's what the 13th Constitution Amendment right is for, though.
Wait till you break a law.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, so no, slavery does still exist. It's just more...
The Pinkertons, like let's look at...
I don't even know how to finish that sentence, but it does still exist.
Yeah.
They put you in one place, they work you for free. So prison is not about even retribution, like, by no means. You don't go there and then it's like, oh my God, you see the light, then they let you out. No, you are a commodity.
Go to jail in Alabama. Go to jail in Alabama where they got you doing slave labor in the mansion, and talk about if slavery still exists in the United States. Like, and if you don't do the work, if you don't do it, they add time to your sentence. So you really don't have a choice. You can either go work for almost free in that mansion, in the governor's mansion, in the big house, which I think is a former plantation, if I'm not mistaken. You can either go work there
Are you talking
for
about that in Angola place?
no, I think so.
Or is that Mississippi?
It might be
Or
Mississippi,
Louisiana?
but it's one of them. And then there's also, or you can go work for, you could go do basically essentially free labor for, whatever company has a contract with the local prison for no money, and you don't get to opt out of it.
Or pennies on the cent.
Yeah, which is essentially the same thing, because by the time, it's never, with inflation, it might as well be zero. Like, the money you're getting might as well be zero. And so,
Right.
and like I said, I guess for me, there's context, like, right? And it's controversial to say it, but from it, I don't know why this is controversial to say, right? But when it comes to people's specific occupations, I don't ascribe anything to anybody. And so if you're a good person, you're a cool person. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And having a specific job title, to me, doesn't change that. The history of if you look up the history of law enforcement in this country and how it's kind of come down, there's a lot of very questionable shit that's gone into that, into the infrastructure of it. And so there are always going to be parts of it that are in disagreement with basic moral decency, just because of how we did law enforcement at scale in this country. Look up the Pinkertons, like, what I'm saying, the stuff that they used to do. And that was like, those were the guys that would, they would eventually become an arm of, like, essentially the feds, the FBI and stuff. And they were used to go put down labor disputes and all kinds of other really kind of dark hearted stuff that they were involved in. And so, when you actually do, when you actually do some of this, when you actually do, and I hate to say do the research, I hate that phrase, but when you do read some of the history about how we did law enforcement at scale in this country, there's some insidious shit that happened. And the other side is, and Fearless, we talked about this on this show, right? Where I told you I was doing that live stream about how for a lot of big cities in the Midwest started out as criminal enterprises, like big open-ended criminal enterprises. Omaha specifically was considered Vegas. It was a wide open town. It was a vice town.
Really, I didn't know that.
And there was a lot of there's a lot of crossover between law enforcement and organized crime in the city. Like, a lot of.
Is that like we're like Mr. C's and all that stuff or whatever?
I don't know if it was the Caniglias, but I know that there were some names that were tied to it. But you look, every Denver has it, St. Louis has it, Kansas City has it,
Chicago.
But a lot of cities were just big criminal operations that they just built infrastructure around, and the local law enforcement was actually tied into that. LA,
like Vegas.
Like, you want to know the biggest one? Los Angeles. Look up the history of Los Angeles and law enforcement and organized crime there. It was a symbiotic relationship.
That makes sense.
And so, it's an interesting thing. So I'm saying all that to say this: I don't inherently think that this occupation is good nor bad. I do point out flaws, and I'll even point out the flaws. I did case management. I will absolutely be the first one to sit down and talk about the gaps and flaws in the way that we handle working with kids and families from a case management perspective. I've done residential. I will talk about the flaws of residential treatment for kids and stuff like that. I don't think there's inherently good or bad. I just think occupations are occupations. And sometimes there are occupations that do require a little bit more humanity than others, and humanity and patience than others. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. I hope that makes sense. You know,
Yeah, it is.
I know, the thing is, we're in this tight ass kind of reactionary spot right now in this country with current events, and so anything that somebody disagrees with that they can take out of uh,
Context.
out of context, um, you know, or if they can't, because I'm realizing we have a lot of people that they understand context, they don't understand subtext, and they don't understand pretext, and they don't understand syntax. And so anything that you say, oh, he's anti this, he's anti cop, whatever. Okay. People will get wound up about it without hearing the nuanced conversation. Because when you're asking two brothers who have actually lived in the communities where they send the rookies and the guys that are that you know they got written up out west, they gonna send them down to the hood to do police work. Our experience is gonna be a little bit different with them.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit different. That's all I'm saying. So, did we even talk about what we did the outline for?
No,
Do we want to talk about that next week?
we can talk about that next week.
I actually like this episode, bro. Like I thought this was perfect.
Me too.
And so next week we can finish what we started and actually do the episode about finishing what you started. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because all the notes are already here. We got all the notes for next week. So yeah, next week that's what we'll do.
Next week we'll finish this. We'll finish what we started and finish this episode. What do you got, Fearless? What do you got coming up, man?
I'm not really sure yet. I got some I got these glasses, right? I got these from Ray-Ban, those Meta AI glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna probably go to someplace and oh no, never mind. I know what I'm doing. Myself and Miss Anya, we're gonna make some bookmarks, and we're gonna start putting money in books all around Omaha.
Okay, that's what's up. I like that.
So we're gonna start putting money in books all around this bitch. So yeah, anytime you see me, I get around like Pac. Like yeah, I'm trying to get us to reading a lot more. It doesn't matter what it is. I just want people to read more, man.
Bet. I think that's important. I think specifically as we head in further and further into the teeth of a very almost violently anti-intellectual place, I think it's going to become more and more essential to be able to read and parse information for yourself. Not do your own research. I really hate when do your own research. No, don't do your own research. But you can educate yourself without doing your own research because some of us aren't equipped to do research. You know,
right?
We're not equipped to draw the right conclusions. I'm not equipped to research things that I don't know about, like things I don't have expertise in. I'm not equipped to research it. I can study it, I can read about it, but I'm not researching it. So anyway,
wait a minute, hold on, Proof Hats. What's the difference between them?
So research, there's going to be then this is totally just a me thing. In my mind, the way that I look at research, there's a scientific method that goes along with it. There's an applied framework that you apply to it where you do X, Y, and Z, and then you figure out what your results are. I can study something and not apply a scientific framework. I can study something for understanding. I can actually teach myself something without having to research it necessarily. Research is, to me, applying a scientific standard, an impartial scientific standard to it. And to me, there's a difference. I see a lot of people that say, "Well, I did my research. You watched a video on YouTube.
Okay, which is not research.
It's not research. There's no scientific standard. You don't have to demonstrate competence or some level of understanding about it. You're not having to write you're not doing a paper on it. Like you're not proving how you're taking the information.
Is there a peer-to-peer review?
Yeah.
So that I can go and read.
Is there any standard of proof that you've taken this information and synthesized it and are able to draw conclusions or make inferences based on this information? Or did you just learn about it and read about it and you have a knowledge because you read about it? That's good enough.
You know what? So So what did you say? There's a difference between research and what?
Researching and learning about, or learning something, like learning about it. Like for me, that I can learn about something without necessarily researching it. I can learn how something works without necessarily researching it. Now, if I want to have a mastery of it, then that's where I'm starting to go into the research side of things. But I can become familiar with I can become familiar with the concept without attaining mastery over it. And a lot of times, I think what happens is online, people have a familiarity with the concept and they think that they mistake that for some kind of mastery. And that's not the same thing.
Okay. So like so reading literacy, that type of stuff is all connected to the learning. But then once you start applying the scientific standard and methods and the XYZ to certain things or whatever, that's the research.
Right.
That's where we can write papers and peer-to-peer reviews and this and the other. Anything other than that is just you reading some shit.
Yeah, you just learn it. You can learn stuff without yeah, you can learn stuff without researching it. You know,
I mean,
uh, a lot of us. Okay, so if you know how to do algebra, did you research algebra? Do you understand all the frameworks that underpin it? No, you just learn how to do algebra. Do you have a mathematician's understanding of it, like where you could actually teach this and teach a lot of the nuances to it? If you do, then you've researched your some of your position, and so that's my take on it. Other people are going to have different perspectives on it. I do think that the language is important. So, yeah, like I said, so what I got cooking is you can kind of see with the background. I'm leaning into the nerd podcasting stuff, and so I'm building out a couple of things. I wanted to get away, not necessarily get 100% away from marketing because I have a video about marketing planned right after this, but I'm kind of changing how I'm pursuing it, and I think my main stuff is going to be, I'm going to be focusing on building out my platform for Blurting While Dad, which is comic books, current events, the whole nine, and Black fatherhood. And so that's what I got coming up. And so hopefully I do have my Patreon launched. I'm not necessarily ready to, I'm still building it out. Like I'm still putting stuff in there. But hopefully next week I'll have the link for that if you guys are interested in supporting me. Um, with it, I'd appreciate it. But
hey, did you know? I forgot what I was watching. Did you know that majority that Facebook brings in $83 billion a year in advertise
oh yeah.
money, but anywhere from 40 to 60% of the traffic are bots.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. How that's some shit that we should be talking about because why give them money if AI is going to be sucking it all up?
That's interesting. And it's an interesting thing. A lot of times the bots are just scraping people's profiles for data. And anymore now, people are using bots to drive traffic because Facebook pays people for video traffic. You can get paid from Facebook. And so they'll have fake accounts up there. There's a lot of weird reasons why that. But I know Twitter's kind of bad too with that. Like I think it's like somewhere upwards of 80% of their accounts are bots on Twitter.
So, can you explain to us what does that actually mean?
So a bot is I mean it essentially is somebody because it's utilizing an algorithm to reply to people. It's a fake account. It's created by a real person, but it's not run by a real person. So a real person isn't replying to your comments when it comes to a bot account. It's a language model.
So how do they see my stuff and just start talking to me?
Because it's kind of programmed to scrape specific interests or specific keywords, and search that stuff out online whenever new content gets published. The bots that you find on Twitter are typically, whatever political buzzwords are out there, they are attracted to, and then they comment like they're real people. And depending on how they're programmed, depends on the kind of comment. Either it can be an incendiary comment or a green comment. And yeah, it's a robot, basically. It's a robot that exists online. to pretend like it's a real person.
That's
And
crazy.
and I mean, we used to do it for like there used to be people would make bots for like Jordan drops when Jordan, whenever Jordan dropped something new, they would make bots so that they can gain access and be the early orders on because the bot can respond a lot quicker to the new drop than a human being can.
Okay.
But once people realize that there's a profit motive behind it and these platforms are paying for eyeballs on content, you know, you can make a bot to do anything. Once political actors realize that I can drive public opinion on a massive scale if I deploy enough bots to a situation and they are fed laced with misinformation, we can create any narrative we want for $1 million. Pay a couple $1 million, create a bot, hire a bot farm to say X, Y, and Z, and you can make anything happen politically. You can make things happen. Like if you're in one of these lobbying groups and you need legislation that benefits you, all you got to do is start a bot campaign online to make it seem like social media sentiment is with you.
Right.
And these Congress people see it. They're like, well, social media is saying X, Y, and Z. This is how they really feel. And then you got positive legislation for whatever you wanted to get through. It's crazy. But yeah, the bots are absolutely a real thing. Automated accounts aren't anything new. And it's not an AI invention. And a lot of times AI isn't like necessarily new. Language models have been around for a long time. That's what a lot of those bots are based on. Just small scale language models.
Really?
Yeah.
So then why are we giving them real money for fucking robots? That's almost like me giving them money to have people show up to my stuff and then robots start showing up. I mean, that's not fair
Yeah.
for me to give you real money for you to give me a fake.
And that's the game. That's why
That's like Kaplan and DeVry. People are taking out real loans for fake fucking college degrees.
And that's why as a marketer, it's getting hard out here as a marketer, because I'm gonna tell you why. Because these social media companies have made it seem like it's dead simple that you don't need somebody to run ads for you. You can do it yourself. Well, what happens is a lot of people that respond and see those ads are bots, and you're not getting real views. The traffic is bots, but you're paying for each view.
And then hold on, but you still get paid because of those bots.
Well, it depends. If you're paying to run the ad, you're paying the social media platform to show this content to an audience of people. Well, if most of that audience is bots, you're paying to show it to fake people.
Right. And
so
how do you know though?
You don't. But that's why when I'm saying I'm a marketer, this is what I do. I know how to try to get to actual real people. But since social media has made it dead simple where anybody can boost a campaign and essentially think that they're running their own ad, they've convinced whoever that we're obsolete. Like, you don't need a copywriter, you don't need somebody who understands the back end of this stuff to create an ad for you. And so it's not anger or anything, but I know how to get your ad seen by people. I know how to get your content seen by real human beings who pay real human being money. Facebook, but if you boost it out yourself and just let them determine their specifications of who they show it to, and you let Facebook determine the psychographics and the times and all that other stuff, they don't care if it's a real person or not. They're still going to take your money. So,
okay.
But for the other end of it, if you're in the content space, it's great to have bots out there. For the time being, because now even YouTube is cracking down on inauthentic views of automated accounts. And so
say that one more time.
Even YouTube's cracking down on inauthentic views of automated accounts. So now they're trying to figure out, are we showing this thing to real people? And if real people aren't seeing this, then you, Mr. Content Creator, who has the ads in their video, you're not going to get paid for the views by people who don't exist.
Right, but how is that their problem or that person's fault? They're not going to know that.
That's the game.
And then at that point, hold on. At that point, then you can basically say that all 15,000 or all 30,000 or all 100,000. Sorry, man, these are all bots. No,
Yep.
there's only like 3 or 4 of them that are real. So then technically, YouTube can keep all that money, even though they're real people. So you'd have no idea who actually. Oh, that's dirty as fuck.
So there's a profit motive for it. Like it to a degree. It makes, because there's two sides to it, right? On one end, with the paid advertisers, in order to get people to continue to want to pay for the platform, they have to ensure that the traffic is authentic, right? And so they're incentivized in order to continue to get the ad revenue to make sure that the traffic is real people. But on the other hand, when they have to pay out, they're not really incentivized to make sure the traffic goes to real people. It's a double-edged sword. So what are they going to do?
Right.
Some are going to take action. Twitter doesn't give a shit. That's why I tell people, and it's X, it's Twitter. I don't give it. I've been telling people not to advertise on Twitter for a long time.
Okay, say that one more time.
I've been telling my clients to not advertise on Twitter for a long time.
Really?
For at least 9 years.
You've been telling them for 9 years, don't go
there. Unless you are a writer or something, don't advertise on Twitter. You know, maybe you create, like, you have a show or something and you post clips to it. Great. But your advertising on Twitter is not necessarily great because there's so many bots on the platform. You don't know if your stuff's ever going to get to a real person. 1, and 2, the mentality of people on Twitter is very anti, like, if they see your ad, it will piss them off and they'll block you just out of spite.
Oh, I gotta love it.
It doesn't matter if they love your product or not. How dare you put an ad in front of my face?
Like, fuck you.
Block. And now you're blocked. And so that's the mentality on Twitter. It's a lot more confrontational. And it's not necessarily an environment that is conducive to interruption-based marketing. Your best strategy on Twitter is organic content. And even then, as a crapshoot, like, I watch people on Twitter, like, they tore Simone Biles' husband's ass up. Tore his ass up.
What did he do?
Because he had the audacity to say, yeah, I didn't necessarily really know her when she first stepped to me. How do you not know Simone Biles? He's a football player. You want to know what football players are doing in the summer? They're getting ready for football season. They ain't sitting around watching Olympics. They ain't sitting around watching the gymnastics on the Olympics, bro. So I think he knew of her, but he didn't necessarily know, like, he heard the name out, and how dare he not know who she is? A whole bullying campaign to the point where Simone Biles had to jump on and say, y'all need to relax. I don't like you going after my husband and target him with this cyberbullying stuff. And then they turned on her. Twitter is a miserable ass place, bro.
He said Twitter is a miserable place.
It is. It's full of miserable people. I've seen people post like they're working in their garden and people get mad because you got a garden and other people ain't got a garden. Why you got a garden? This is classist. What? I saw crazy. So I saw somebody got roasted because they were out at a cafe during the daytime and they took a picture of their drink. And people on Twitter got mad because they thought it was classist because this person has the money to be able to go to a cafe during the day and not be at work. And they jumped on them for that.
Okay, say that one more time.
They got mad because somebody took a picture of their drink at a cafe.
Gotcha.
And they thought somebody on there got in their feelings, thought it was classist because this person has the luxury of being at a cafe in the middle of the day as opposed to working. Crazy shit, man.
This is on what?
Twitter, people take weird, like people will get pissed off at the weirdest things on Twitter. It is the most bizarre thing. People mad, oh, you got a garden. How you got a garden? Why you got a garden? It must be nice to have a garden.
What are you talking about, X?
Yeah, X, Twitter. It must be nice to have a garden. Well, damn. I thought it was cool to show how much my garden grow. All these other people ain't got a garden. What? I'm not allowed to enjoy this thing. And that's what it is. If you enjoy something on X, there's going to be, if you post something you like on X, invariably there's going to be somebody that comes and wipes their ass with it. It just happens. That's what happens on Twitter. X, Twitter. Mama named him Twitter. I'm going to call him Twitter. So yeah. So that's why I tell my clients to stay off of it. From a business standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would you want to market into that hostile shit unless you have a brand that's toxic enough to survive Twitter or X? Do you have a brand? If you have a brand that's toxic enough, then go for it. If you thrive on hate and conflict and angst and anger, Twitter is the place for you. So anyway, so that's what I got, guys. I got my podcast that I do on Tuesday nights, a live stream. Come check your boy out tonight. Be talking about some comic book stuff and possibly some anti red pill stuff with Black Dad energy. So that's what I got.
Okay, yeah. We're going to be what are we doing? I think we're going to be making some bookmarks and getting out to bookstores and handing them out and all that good stuff or whatever, trying to get you guys to read more. So that's my whole thing. And here's the thing, I'm also a life coach, certified, seasoned and all that stuff, man. Listen, man, with everything going on right now, man, if you guys need to talk, give me a call. Right? I mean, it's, man, if you just need somebody to listen to you for a little bit, man, give me a call. Mm-hmm. My prices are very affordable. This is what I do. So give me a call. All that good stuff. Or go to, I forgot what my site was. I may have to buy 2 accounts. I think I may have to. I don't know. Either way, man. Yeah, give me a man. So.
Oh, and yeah, same thing. I mean, if you need like a brain for marketing or you need a marketing strategy, so that's what I want to do. I want to teach you how to market or give you some of the game behind the scenes, teach you how to market your stuff effectively. Or if you just want to learn how to get online and do kind of what me and Fearless are doing, hit me up. I ain't hard to find. Drop it in the comment section and I'll find it.
That part.
And so, but that's what we got, man. I do appreciate y'all tuning in. Fearless, thanks for running the show this week, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We have doses.